Imagine this for a moment. You are in Japan. You have a status that makes the entire nation worship you and view you as their savior. One morning you wake up to find your home surrounded by police and hundreds of journalists. You are handcuffed and stripped of your civilian clothes, then held in a cold, windowless cell for 80 days. You are Carlos Ghosn, the legendary CEO who saved the global automotive giant Nissan from bankruptcy. This is the ultimate corporate tragedy. It's not just a scandal, it's about power becoming so absolute that the person holding it genuinely believes that the laws of finance and ethics no longer apply to them. This is the story of how one of the world's most successful executives pulled off a financial escape so audacious that it could only be scripted in Hollywood. To grasp the scale of his downfall, we must first appreciate the depths of desperation he overcame. When Carlos Ghosn arrived at Nissan in 1999, the company was on the brink of collapse. The renowned Japanese car manufacturer was drowning in over $20 billion of debt, operating 7 factories at half capacity and hemorrhaging cash. In Tokyo, the mood was one of defeat. Nobody in the rigid Japanese corporate culture dared to make the necessary cuts. However, Ghosn was not Japanese. He was Lebanese-Brazilian, educated in France and trained in ruthless efficiency. Landing in Tokyo, he saw the sickness and did what any great surgeon would do. He cut deep and fast. He announced the Nissan Revival Plan, a strategy so brutal that it shocked the world. He promised to close 5 domestic factories, slash 21,000 jobs, 10% of Nissan ADAS global workforce, and terminate contracts with suppliers who had worked with the company for decades. The Japanese press immediately dubbed him the cost-cutting monster. Yet just a year later, Nissan was profitable again. The year after that, it had paid off its debt. Ghosn had not only saved the company, he had also restored the nation's faith in its industry. He became a national icon, celebrated in manga comics, and earned the status of a corporate demigod. However, it was precisely this status and unquestioned adoration that enabled financial corruption to take root. As his power grew to encompass the entire Renault-Nissan-Mitsubishi alliance, making him the most powerful figure in the global automotive industry, he began to believe that the hundreds of millions he was generating for the company fundamentally belonged to him. The primary accusation that would eventually lead to his downfall was financial. Ghosn was accused of concealing a large part of his compensation, money that had been promised to him upon retirement. Initially, he was earning around $10 million a year from Nissan, a figure that was made public. However, prosecutors later claimed that he had arranged for an additional $90 million to be paid out after his retirement, and had hidden this commitment entirely from the public financial statements. To an audience of finance experts, this wasn't just greed, it was stock manipulation. By concealing this substantial future liability, Ghosn had artificially inflated Nissan's reported profits and hidden the true cost of executive compensation. This meant that investors who believed the company's books were clean had been defrauded. The concealment relied on a complex web of shell companies and international subsidiaries. Funds were allegedly channeled through entities such as Renault Nissan BV, a Netherlands-based holding company used to manage the alliance and turn it into a black box for personal transactions. Beyond his concealed retirement fund, Ghosn was accused of blatantly misusing corporate assets. Prosecutors claimed that he purchased luxury residences in places such as Rio de Janeiro, Beirut, and Paris, using Nissan's money, and routed the transactions through overseas shell companies. Although these houses were registered as corporate assets, they served purely as his private luxury residences. He was also accused of using corporate funds to pay for his daughter's extravagant wedding at the Palace of Versailles. Ghosn's defense was always simple. The money was mine. I deserved it. It was going to be paid anyway. However, the law states that a CEO cannot transfer shareholder funds to themselves, especially if they conceal the transaction from the market. The investigation into Ghosn did not start with prosecutors. It began within Nissan itself. A small group of disgruntled executives, concerned about Ghosn's plan to permanently merge Nissan with Renault, which they viewed as transferring Japanese assets to French control, began meticulously collecting evidence of his financial misconduct. These internal whistleblowers then quietly fed information to the Tokyo prosecutors. The noose tightened slowly but surely. On 19th November 2018, Carlos Ghosn landed his private jet at Haneda Airport in Tokyo. He expected to be met by his staff. Instead, he was met by Japanese authorities who swarmed the aircraft. He was immediately arrested on suspicion of financial misconduct. The shock was immediate and absolute. How could the man who saved Nissan be arrested at the height of his power? The world watched as the corporate titan was led away, his gilded world suddenly replaced by the cold, harsh reality of the Japanese justice system. As Ghosn would soon discover, this system was designed not for justice, but for compliance. The nightmare had just begun.